Iraq, March 20, 2003. The US's full-scale war on Iraq on lame excuses, and the subsequent fall of Baghdad in 3 days. Apparently, the Iraqi people had made up their minds to not resist. They turned a blind eye to the occupation. Iraq collapsed, and that set the stage for the occupation. Based on the new Middle East plan, at the top of the US and Zionist agenda is to divide and weaken West Asian countries, since they are a threat to the existence of Israel. Although a direct military action is no longer an option in Washington's policies because of its high costs, ensuring Israel's security is still at the top of US agenda. In response to this evil plan, different countries and nations adopted different policies. Gaddafi, for example, chanted revolutionary and anti-imperialist slogans, but later succumbed to the stringent sanctions. And after the 2003 negotiations, he ended his nuclear and missile programs. Later on, he paid $2.7 billion and another $170 million in compensation. But the US never removed its sanctions, on endless excuses. Finally, amid Libya's 2011 unrest backed by the US and NATO, Muammar Gaddafi was killed, with his assets confiscated. From the beginning, Saudi Arabia was not interested in combating arrogance and opted for a compromise with the US and Israel. As a result, Riyadh has had to give in to every demand by the US, including multi-billion-dollar arms deals or contracts on economic infrastructure, and so on. While it was welcomed by the US as a milk cow, when it comes to Palestine, Yasser Arafat was a blatant example of submission to oppression. In the 1990s, with an olive branch in his hand, Arafat recognized Israel by signing an agreement with the regime. In return, Israel did not comply with any of the terms of the accord, and Arafat was later assassinated. Mahmoud Abbas followed Arafat's footsteps, but after 30 years of fruitless negotiations, he still hopes he will reach an agreement with Israel, saying, "We should talk." On the other hand, countries that opted for resistance paid a lower price and achieved great victories. A case in point is Lebanon and the Hezbollah resistance, which liberated the country after 18 years of Israeli occupation. In the 33-day war, Lebanon heavily defeated the Israeli army, which was armed to the teeth, thus turning into a regional power and a source of pride for the Muslim world. When Yasser Arafat and the Fatah organization were signing a peace treaty with Israel, Hamas and its figures like Sheikh Ahmed Yassin chose the path of resistance and managed to defend Gaza and the West Bank by repelling Israeli attacks. Palestinian resistance managed to foil the plan that sought to wipe out Palestine. The resistance axis now has the upper hand and moved from throwing stones to firing missiles against Israeli positions. After experiencing the outcomes of their compromise with the US in 2003 and the American quagmire of occupation, the Iraqi nation chose to resist against Daesh and managed to drive out the terrorists in less than 4 years, while the US had predicted that it would take 20 years for Daesh to be eliminated. Basically, there are two paths to choose in the face of oppression: compromise or resistance. Everything is up to our choice, but the heroes of history would definitely choose resistance.